What's up, girl?
Girl, I have been learning all the things lately. I feel like a bookworm.
Me
I have never
too.
read more books in the last 2 months than I've in
Well,
years.
and because we've been kind of chatting about that, about reading books, and there's actually one I want to tell you guys about today. But I've had a Goodreads account for forever, but I just like don't update it. I read some stuff on my Kindle, some stuff on a physical book. I get some books from the library, but I just wanted to really track what I was reading this year specifically because I'm like, I've already read
Hmm.
so much and I want to like remember this. So I reset up my Goodreads account, like reorganized some stuff and marked off like so many books that I've already read.
Wait, so you can
Yes.
track what
Oh my
books
gosh.
you
Do you not know
read?
about
Oh,
Goodreads? It's
no, I
incredible.
don't.
It's free. You should sign up for it. And you can connect, if you
Okay.
have a Kindle, you can connect that. You can connect your Amazon account, whatever. I think it's an Amazon platform. Y'all can correct me if I'm
Okay.
wrong, but you can search for any title that you want. It doesn't matter how you read the book, and you can mark it as currently reading, want to read, or read. And you can rate it. You
Ooh.
can review it if you want. I haven't gone that far because I don't have time like that, but I've tracked the ones that I have read and that I currently own and want to read, and then the ones that I'm
Yeah.
currently reading. I don't quite use it as a wish list yet because I don't want to get confused.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I started doing
My wish list is my
yes,
Amazon
100%. My
list.
wish list is my Amazon list. Goodreads is what's currently in my house
In your
that I want to
household.
read or
Sure.
am reading.
Sure.
But I also signed up for, it's called Book of the Month. I think it's Book of the Month Club or just Book of the
Okay.
Month. And it's like $15.99 a month. And it's non-business related. So I wanted to also start reading again just for fun and getting like out of my head a
Mhm.
little bit because reading,
Mhm.
I mean, it's a trauma response, but reading was my escape as a child to like not
Oh, really,
be
Emily?
in this life. And I've been needing that kind of escapism again.
Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
and so I signed up for Book of the Month. It's $15.99 a month, and they give you. It used to be they would give you, I think, 3 or 5 options of books. And if you didn't like any of them, you could skip, no big deal. But if you liked one, like you just would select it and it's like free. I mean, you pay for a month, but when you go to select your book, it's like, this is free with your membership. And they mail it to you. And it's a hardcover book for $15.99, which is ridiculously inexpensive. I picked my first book of the month club in February, got it. I finished it in a week. It was so good. And March already came. I picked 2 books. So if you add on more, you get the second one for like cheaper than what you would normally pay, whatever, whatever. And so my March ones are coming and I'm very excited. But all of that to say, I'm going to be reading a lot and I wanted to track it.
Nice. So I've been seeing this trend. I don't know. I ended up on Book Talk, and the cutest thing, and it's super corny, but I'm like, do I want to do this? But also, like, I've kind of decided, although I love to craft, if it takes
Yeah,
too long, then
it's not
don't even
happening.
bother,
Yeah.
Abigail. But essentially, this girl makes a mini
I,
version of a book every time she reads a book, and she puts it in a jar, and it's just the cutest
yeah,
thing I've ever
I
seen.
think you could easily do that. You would just have to figure out the scale
I,
of.
I know. It'd be very simple. I already watched a
Mhm.
how-to video.
Maybe
The
you could do it every
my
quarter, so you're batching them.
Yeah, like I don't want to do it like one at a
Mhm.
time. That would be a big waste of time. But I just kind of like the idea. But for now, I've been stacking them. Although cuz I don't read on a Kindle. I only read physical copies or listen to books. But I don't necessarily own all of them. I do sometimes use the library. So I do want a way to like
Yeah,
visually track what I've
yeah.
been doing. Um, but nonetheless, the books I've been diving into recently have been really fascinating. So I'm reading one book on OKRs and like setting objectives within a company, but I'm also listening to a book by the co-founder of Netflix about how that company started. Both of the books are primarily based in the late 90s, and in terms
Which
of
is
timeline,
800 years ago in the internet world.
I can't even talk about just how different
Can you give the
business
names of the
is.
books so people could?
Yeah, so, one of them, oh gosh, you're putting me on the spot here. I'll pull it up. But essentially, the thing that I've been fascinated by is just how we forget how different the world was. But I also think, because I'm such a firm believer in pulling on previous business
What we call
practices.
old school
And so,
business tactics. Yeah.
right. And so I'm like, what about this can I pull
Mm-hmm.
from and like feel really good about or just like step into? But both of these books are very masculine
Mm-hmm.
energy based. Like they're written by men, definitely later in life. They've already had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
success. And so I'm interested because I felt really out of place recently. And I think part of it is because of the way the business is growing, I've felt this need to like step into a more masculine like
Mm-hmm.
place. But I also want to like, how do I do that in
Yeah.
my own
Yeah.
way? And so anyway, um the Netflix book is called That Will Never Work by Mark Randolph. And I'll have to grab the other book in a second. But it's just been really
What was
fascinating
the other one? Measure What
because
Matters. Is that what you're reading? Yeah.
yes, Measure What Matters. That's the other book for sure. Um, but it's crazy to me how different it is. Both they're based in
Yeah.
Silicon Valley. Both are based in like this VC capital world where people are getting funding for their businesses. And I think Emily and I forget all the time that our business is completely bootstrapped. Like Emily and I didn't even put money in
Yeah,
to start the
a friend of our, an
business.
old client of ours just reached out this a couple weeks ago at this point, and she was like, "This might be a personal question." And I said, first of all, I do not believe in personal questions. I have no sense of boundaries. But she was like, "Did you guys have any like funding or capital when you started?" And I sat there to be like, if you guys have been listening for a long time, you know that my memory lies. And so my gut reaction was like, absolutely not. We've never done that. And I sat and I was like, okay, make sure that this is true before you respond to her. But no, it was true.
Not to start it. I mean, we've definitely. I'm not gonna lie and say like cash flow has
Oh
always been
no.
perfect. We've taken advantage of like SBA
Yes.
things that were offered for COVID
Yes.
relief, and we've taken advantage of a credit line
Yeah, I
during
told
a
her, I was
cash
like,
flow thing.
don't read that to say that we've been flowing in cash since day one. That's not what I
No.
mean.
So we've definitely like run into tight spots before. But we've never like personally been like, oh, I'm gonna invest 50 grand or 100
What
grand
was
or whatever.
the takeaway you shared with me the other day from that, where it was like all of these companies were like, the biggest mistake you can make is if it's your idea and your business is to also use all of your money to fund the
Yeah, they were basically like, don't put your ideas at risk alongside your
right.
money. And I thought that was really interesting because I think so often when for us, but also for many of you listening, if you run a service-based business, especially because of the prices you can charge, you can go into this without necessarily you don't need money to start. Like, I mean, you could maybe land a client without a
Right.
website and then pay for
Right.
your website. And then
Every step
you could,
funds the next step kind of thing.
right, exactly. And so I just think most of us are not, we look at the, well, that must be nice
Yeah.
kind of businesses out there and think, oh, that's totally different. But, to me, it's like, when do you hit a point in your business where you're okay with scaling in a
Right.
different way? Like, I think there's different phases. And so I don't know what that means. I'm just like allowing myself to
Yeah.
believe that it's even a
Yeah.
possibility because people do this all the
Yes.
time. And
Well,
we
I'm
have,
also reading a business book I want to share about. And first, the book I was talking about in my book of the month club that I loved was called The Golden Couple. If you wanted to check it out, it was really, really good. Not business related whatsoever. A little bit of a thriller, a little bit of a mystery, but not scary. So the book I'm reading right now, it's called Love is a Business Strategy. And I love how you
mm,
described your books as like being really masculine energy based. And although this one is written by four dudes, it is the most non-masculine energy business book I've ever read,
interesting.
especially written by men. And I'm about a quarter of the way through right now. And I have 4 or 5 pages of a note doc filled out because when I read books like this specifically, and I think you do the same thing, but I take the notes in the sense of how I want to present the ideas to our team, especially our leadership team.
Yeah.
This one
Yeah.
is really big on the culture of love, obviously, but how the question I've kind of asked myself over and over again, especially as we've grown, is how do you build a business in love, in ethics, and in
Mhm.
standards, and in boundaries, and still hold expectations. And I think I know both of those can coexist. And
Mm.
how can it look for us? And what I love about the way that we approach stuff like this, and this is what I would encourage all of you listening to do, is take anything that you're reading, listening to, learning, and run it through your own filter first of like, what do I like about it?
Mhm.
What can I take away from it? And, I think
Mhm.
especially when we watch a training or we buy a program or we invest in something, I think a lot of us, it's second nature to expect every single piece of that to work for us as is. But when we
Mhm.
read a book or listen to a podcast or whatever, we're like, okay, I'm going to take away this one nugget and I still feel like I didn't waste my time. I've never ever read a
Mhm.
book and loved every single thing about it, but I
Right.
don't regret
Right.
the weeks or sometimes months it took me to finish the book.
Is the one you're reading, like, very structured, like, think this, do this, like, is it
It's
tactical
so
or
it's set up in the way that I love business books to be set up. There are some that I just cannot read because they're like dry and they're boring and you're like, it's maybe way too tactful, and it's like too structured.
Sure.
But the way that I love is one part storytelling and then it follows up with a structured breakdown of how to implement the
Oh,
story.
love
It's
that.
my
Love
absolute
that. Love
favorite, and
that.
this does it really, really well.
Yeah, I've read several recently that were very strategy focused, and so it was almost like reading a textbook at
Right.
certain points where you're like, I could kind of skip
Yeah.
through this and like go through it really quickly. The two I mentioned are almost exclusively
Oh, yeah.
storytelling, and so it is nice because I don't
Mm-mm.
like and this is just a me thing, but I've always struggled with reading for fun, like other topics. So this is a way to like get
True
business
story.
in,
Yeah.
but it's still
Mhm.
story. So like I'm the kind of person who watches Shark Tank on
Right.
purpose, like for
Right. Right.
entertainment. So like I used to really guilt trip myself about only reading business books, and then I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's fine.
if it's what I like,
Yeah.
it's what I like. Um, Not that I couldn't ever find a topic. I'm sure if I picked it, it'd probably be romance, but let's just
Well,
not go
so
there.
yeah, use your Kindle for romance books. That's my best piece of advice for anyone out there. But those are just a couple of things on our bookshelf right now and that we're reading, and we thought we'd share those with you. If you want to check any of them out,
Yeah.
definitely head to Amazon or your local library and see what they're about.